Make Easter more delicious than ever with chocolates from Rosalind Candy Castle in New Brighton. The entire Rosalind Candy Castle family invites you to stop in for the area's best selection of Easter basket fillers and novelties made from the highest quality pure milk chocolate. Try their homemade hand-decorated Easter eggs, such as the mouth-watering peanut butter melt-away eggs. All 15 varieties of Easter eggs are made fresh in Rosalind's Candy Kitchen. Don't forget, Rosalind Candy will have their delicious chocolate-covered strawberries the 3 days before Easter. Stop by Rosalind Candy Castle on the corner of 13th Street and 5th Avenue in New Brighton, or shop online and order your Easter favorites right from your desk at rosalindcandy.com. Rosalind Candy Castle, the sweetest place in Beaver County.
Looking for a quick and easy lunch or dinner? Make it the 2 for $6 McDonald's deal. You'll get your choice of Big Mac, 10-piece nuggets, or filet of fish. Pick 2 for only $6. Only at McDonald's. I'm loving it.
Our Lady of the Valley Parish is inviting you to one of the best Lenten fish fries in the Valley at the St. Cecilia Hall on California Avenue in Rochester. The fish fries get underway on Friday, March the 7th, and will be every Friday throughout the Lenten season from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. There'll be fish sandwiches, fried or baked, for just $12. Fried or baked fish dinners, $15. Shrimp dinners are $15. Fish or shrimp salads are $14. And the Chesapeake Bay dinner is $17. It includes fish, shrimp, and crab cakes. The dinners also include coleslaw and a choice of French fries, mac and cheese, or yummy pierogies. Yummy pies for dessert, but that's extra. You can eat in, take out. Credit cards are also accepted. Call 724-775-3775 or 724-709-7426.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Mike Romine.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Good to see you again.
I've been communicating with your office every once in a while because I do not. Okay. So I saw you release the other day on social. Okay. All right, at Seven Oaks Country Club, the Congressional Breakfast, sponsored by the Beaver County Chamber of Commerce, and the Congressman is here, Congressman Chris Deluzio. Good morning and welcome to Beaver County, or back to Beaver County, because you're here quite a bit.
It's great to always be here.
Yeah. And you're here this morning to tell the county, don't hold your breath. There are things happening in Washington that you're trying to work out.
Yeah, look, I think there's a lot going on, good and bad. I'll talk a little bit about both. I think I've been worried in particular about some of the efforts to dismantle the Social Security Administration, Veterans Affairs, and of course, now this trade war I think could really hurt us here at home.
How is that going to affect us? I know you've sent out a press release on Social Security, and the Republicans, the Trump administration says, we're not touching Social Security, and they're making all this up.
Well, if you fire people at the Social Security Administration, it's going to be harder for folks to get the checks they've earned. I'm very worried about that. I've heard from seniors in the district. I've seen efforts to fire staff, close field offices. All those things can make it harder for somebody to get the benefits that they've earned after a lifetime of hard work.
And tariffs from Washington, they're on, they're off, they're on, they're off. How's that affecting the economy here?
Well, you talk to small business owners, farmers, you name it, the uncertainty alone is a problem. And I'm a guy who knows we have to get tougher on, say, communist China around things like steel and critical parts of our infrastructure. And so tariffs alone can't do this, but they're part of a broader mix in this.
Congressman Chris Deluzio, I'd like to talk to you more. Maybe someday we'll get a chance to do that.
Yes,
but I think they're waiting on you now.
Thank
you so much. Congressman Chris Deluzio is going to talk, and took a couple seconds away from his speech, and they're introducing him now. So I'll step aside. You're watching this and listening to it on Beaver County Radio.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Katie Klaber, and I have the privilege of serving as chair of the board for the Beaver County Chamber, just starting a second year, and we have a wonderful group on the board supporting an even more wonderful staff. And I'd like to take, before we get underway, just a quick recognition of those board members who are with us today. If you could stand if you're a member of the board. Thank you. They certainly are doing their jobs well. We are very happy today to have the congressman with us, of course, and the other very key elected officials to Beaver County. We're happy to have Representative Josh Kale and his team here. We're happy to have Mitch Henderson with Senator Fetterman's office, who's played an active role in our Government Affairs Committee. District Attorney Nate Bible, I understand, is here, although I have not gotten to say hi to you yet. Yeah, there you are, Nate. Thank you. And of course, our county commissioners that are so important to what we do here every day, Commissioners Jack Manning, Dan Camp, and Tony Amadeo. We also really want to thank our sponsors. You'll see a couple different, well, for some of you, a new type of sponsor that the Chamber put in place this year. And we already are thrilled to see a number of year-long sponsors. You'll see them come up on the rotating screens here. Those companies have recognized how important it is to have a very strong chamber to build capacity in our chamber to be able to do the kind of things that we need to do for you, the businesses of Beaver County. So those year-long sponsorships, it's not like it's, I mean, it's a running sponsorship, so 12 months. So if any of you are not on that list but would like to find out more about what's involved, the benefits, and how it really is important to your companies, your organizations, and to the county and the chamber, we'd love to hear from you on that. But for today's event, we also have some special sponsors. Our presenting sponsors, Heritage Valley Health System, and we'll hear in a minute from their president and CEO, Norm Mitry. Shell Polymers, Monaca. We have gold sponsors, the Community College of Beaver County, IBEW Local 712, Vistra. Our silver sponsors, Ambridge Regional Distribution and Manufacturing Center, the Beaver County Association of Realtors, Comcast, the Express Employment Professionals, Pittsburgh West, and Range Resources. So what a great group of companies who have stepped up to support this Congressional Breakfast. So what I am going to do now is introduce Norm Mitry, the president and CEO of Heritage Valley Health Systems. And after Norm says a few words, you're going to hear from our very esteemed co-chairs of our Government Affairs Committee to talk to you about some of the things the Government Affairs Committee is doing. So, Norm.
Good morning, everyone. What a beautiful morning outside, okay? I mean, sunshine, 32 degrees, soon to be 60, 70 tomorrow, but clearly this time of year is always a special time of year. So please enjoy the day. Welcome this morning. Heritage Valley Health System has been sponsoring this event for quite some time. And it's one of the most important events I think we have. So to have the opportunity to have a U.S. Congressman here is something that a lot of folks really would like to have, and sometimes we take that for granted. So we've been doing this. Some of you in the room will remember this. We've been doing this since we used to do it at the hospital. We started with U.S. Congresswoman Melissa Hart. 2001 to 2007, Chris. We've been doing this a long time. People after that. So it's important for all of us to stay committed to the community and support the Chamber of Commerce and support, if you will, all these events. So on behalf of Heritage Valley, we do thank you for being here this morning. I'm sure the Chamber thanks you for being here this morning. You know, when they said I could have a couple minutes, healthcare is a tough business right now. And one of my favorite phrases for years, and a lot of people who know me know this is my phrase, healthcare is ever-changing and ever-challenging. And for those of you who might have been around in the 70s, maybe no one in this room, or remember the 70s or want to, what do you think happened when Beaver Falls, New Brighton, and Rochester made a decision to close their community-based hospitals to change and build a brand new facility in Brighton Township. I go back that far because healthcare has always been ever-changing and ever-challenging. And most recently, Heritage Valley had to make a pretty difficult decision with the closure or the coming closure of our Heritage Valley Kennedy campus, which is in Allegheny County. Why that is so important for me to mention that to you today is Heritage Valley is committed to this service area. And when one makes these types of decisions, which are not easy, the rumors start to circulate pretty quickly. And so Heritage Valley is here to stay. I just want to tell you that. We are committed to high quality, cost-effective, accessible local health care. And so it's important for you all to know that if you hear rumors about Heritage Valley, I would really, really ask you to, if you would, dispel those rumors. And at your table, I believe, are there pens at the table? Okay. So there's pens and there's probably a piece of paper around. And if you ever have questions, comments, concerns about Heritage Valley Health System, I want you to pick up this pen because I'm going to give you my cell phone number. That's how important this is to me and this organization and the board of Heritage Valley. So that number, which by the way, everybody has anyway, is 412-389-8423. If you ever have a question, Mike Romai has that phone number that he uses once in a while. But please feel free to pick up the phone and call me with any question, comment, or concern about healthcare in the Beaver Valley or Allegheny County area. So once again, welcome today. It's my pleasure to turn the podium over to a representative of the Government Affairs Committee of the Beaver County Chamber of Commerce. And I think it's Jim Graff. Is that who's coming up to do this? Pardon me? And okay. Jim and Josh.
Yes. Thank you, Norm.
Right.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
And before, yeah. I was remiss to mention one thing on the agenda today that we're very excited to have. At 9 o'clock, after we wrap up, our new member, Scott Adamson with Adamson Insurance, is sponsoring a Bloody Mary bar. You would have gotten a ticket when you came in. I passed on my ticket because I have a really big day, but boy, that's tempting. But please stick around for a few minutes, get to meet our new member, Scott Adamson, in the room adjacent. Thank you. Back to the business.
And once I've had a couple Bloody Marys, I have Norm's cell phone number now. So if anybody has anything you want to talk about healthcare, we can do that. So that's right. I'm Jim Graff. I'm the co-chair, along with my good friend Josh here, of the Government Affairs Committee for the Beaver Valley Chamber of Commerce. And one of our goals of the Government Affair and the Chamber is to have and foster great interaction with our representatives and elected officials. So this is one of those events, and we're really glad that you all made it here, that you're giving your time and your attention to something that's very important, and that's the government affairs of Beaver County. So I do want to thank you all again, and thank, of course, Norm and the healthcare for the sponsorship once again.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, everybody, for attending. And I'll echo those sentiments. You're here. Thank you for being here. Thank you for engaging. We're greatly appreciative of you. It's a hard time to engage right now. There's a lot going on, but you're here, and we need you here. We need you to continue to be at our events, which is why I'm going to elaborate on some future events that we have coming up. Here in May 13th, we're taking a trip out to the Capitol. Our Government Affairs Committee and the support of our chamber has put together a great trip on May 13th. It's Tuesday. We'll be there all day, arriving early in the morning, 10-ish, 11-ish. And we'll be there through 5, 6 o'clock. A lot of opportunities to join us and get out there and meet with your elected officials across the state, state departments we have lined up to meet with. We have a packed agenda for the entire day. If you'd like to learn more, if you'd like to hear that agenda or get some issues to us that you'd like us to present to some elected officials throughout the day, please get in touch with us. I won't be giving out my personal cell phone, but you can contact the Beaver County Chamber, Jim and myself, through the Beaver County Chamber and the Government Affairs Committee. And then in July, I think it's July 16th, we have the legislative cruise. You all know and love. We have an updated boat this year. We're going to get some new amenities on that boat, get a little fresh boat, gets things cleaner and meaner for us. We're going to have a great time. So please join us for those. And like I said, if you have any other questions, give us a call. Thank you all. Back to Jim.
All right. Thanks, Josh. All right. Well, as much fun as Josh and I are to listen to, that we're not why you're here. So it is my privilege to introduce Congressman Deluzio. I want to thank him again for always attending the event and making this a great interaction for all of us. So let's have a good Beaver County welcome for Congressman Deluzio.
Thank you. All right, good morning, everybody. I've got a short 2-hour speech to give, so buckle up. Thank you, Caroline. Caroline Lowe, my district director, who you should all get to know if you don't know already. I should also introduce Faith from my team, who's from Brighton, just not too far away. See a lot of familiar faces, which is a good thing. If you don't know me and my team, please say hello, get to know us. I sensed as we introduced Representative Kale and the commissioners, I'm here from the federal level. This government side of this is a team sport. You hear D's and R's in that, right? Working for Beaver County is a team sport that we all got to be firing on every cylinder together. And we may have some different answers to some of these problems. That's okay. But for the basic task of doing everything we can at Harrisburg, at the county courthouse in Washington, you got a good team working, I think, to do what's right for this county of ours. And this is now my, I guess, third time I get to do this. I feel like I've been in Congress for a long time because in Washington 2 years is like a lifetime. It's an honor to get to do this. I don't know what Harrisburg calculations are for service. Probably pretty similar. Yeah, I would think. But look, it's a great honor to get to represent everyone in Beaver County. I represent about half of Allegheny County. It's about 750,000 people. It's a great district. I get the best district in the country. I argue with people all the time about that. But it's really great. My office around here, Center Township, and I've got an office in Carnegie and the other side of Allegheny County in Penn Hills. But Center Township, closest for everybody here in the county. I talk about the values that I take to this job, which are ones that are pretty familiar, I think, for me growing up in Western Pennsylvania, for all of us who live and work around here. I talk about hard work, I talk about patriotism, I talk about sacrifice. I think that gets to the heart of who we are in this part of the world and what we have to say to the rest of the country, which is a lot. And we've given this country a lot. I try to take that pride and that history to the job. I think economic stability is kind of at the heart of what we're trying to achieve, and growth and the American dream. You know, I'm 40, whatever that makes me in the world. Apparently that means I'm in middle age. It's a weird thing to feel. But I'm 40. So my generation, we're kind of the first generation since the Second World War where people don't expect to do better than their parents. And people younger than me feel that even less. That's a fundamental failing, I think, of government across parties and decades, really. And I take my job as trying to restore that you work hard, you follow the rules, you got a shot at the American dream. Right here in Beaver County, all over this country. There's not going to be one party's answer to that. That's not going to be one level of government who helps solve that alongside all the things that you're doing. But again, I come back to this as a team sport. So that is at the heart of what I'm trying to accomplish. And for me, how do you test whether we're succeeding as a county, as a region, as a state? This is a place people can come to find work, have good, solid jobs, live, retire with dignity, want to start a business. All those things are, to me, ways you measure whether we're succeeding and the ways we should be asking those questions year over year of how we're doing around here. And look, I know many of you work hard toward those goals. You are in this. You don't need me to lecture you what that's about. And that to bring the American dream back into reach, there's a role for government. There's a role for private industry. There's a role for nonprofits. There's a role for our unions and our workforce. And I could go on and on. The point is we all have something to say about whether we're going to succeed around here. And I am with you in that fight. Washington seems like a hectic place. I suspect that things are pretty crazy down there, and I'll talk about what's going on. But you should expect your representatives in Harrisburg and Washington, and again in the county and local government as well, to be doing everything they can. So let's talk about what's going on in Washington. That's kind of, I think, why you have me up here to talk. There's some chaos and confusion about what the heck is going on. I shouldn't swear, excuse me. And look, I think there are some risks to our economy, given what's going on in Washington. And they're probably pretty obvious. There's a lot of, the back and forth of this and that and the policy fights, but there are some real risks, I think, to our part of the world and our region's economy. I think we would see some pain and, frankly, suffering here if we saw the kind of cuts that have been proposed at, say, Veterans Affairs, 80,000 people on the chopping block at VA. I get my health care at the VA. Social Security Administration, I fired off a bunch of letters this week about closures of field offices, firings of staff. I think if you target the people who deliver benefits that people earn, you're likely to mess up people getting those benefits. And Social Security is one that you earn after a lifetime of hard work, an important one for us to defend. National Institutes of Health, NIH. Our region broadly, I represent half of Allegheny County as well. Last year alone, more than $600 million came into Western Pennsylvania from the NIH. So a lot of our region's economy, where's Norm, you're talking about healthcare, a lot of our region's economy is very much around education and medicine, eds and meds. So we are uniquely vulnerable to cuts at NIH that could have a spillover effect here in Beaver County and beyond. I heard from a lot of hospital networks around potential Medicaid cuts and what that would mean for the closures of facilities and the ability to deliver care outside the urban core of Pittsburgh. And so I'm thinking here in Beaver County and again beyond of the folks who would really feel some pain if we saw Medicaid cuts happen that have been proposed in the budget framework that the Congress is working on for a tax bill. I've seen grant opportunities for my local police departments go away. The COPS grants is what they're called. One of the very useful tools I have to support getting federal money to our police departments. That affects public safety. We saw attempts to freeze federal money for infrastructure projects. And I'll talk about one in particular, Montgomery Locks and Dam, which is a huge project of great importance to our region. Again, these things are being worked out in the court, but I highlight to say there is great risk to us here in concrete ways if things in Washington affecting government workers, infrastructure projects were to actually happen, and we would feel that. And I also think some of the trade action, we've heard a lot from farmers, small businesses about the impacts. And I say this as a guy who is proud to represent steelmaking part of the world, that for a long time our country got this wrong, right? We allowed the outsourcing of jobs, we allowed foreign countries to undercut us, and yet we need more than just reckless across-the-board tariffs to fix that. You've got to have industrial policy, you've got to have pro-worker policies, and I worry again about how we will feel the impact of a trade war here in Western Pennsylvania that I don't want to see happen. That's just the start of things in Washington. Again, there's a lot going on. But I do think this discussion of trade is an important one. I serve on the Armed Services Committee. My other committee is the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. You talk to folks who serve on the defense side of the world, we understand, our defense industrial base has been really gutted out. We have this image in our mind of what happened in World War II and turning the assembly lines to crank out tanks and bombs and everything else. We don't have that same industrial base, and that's a problem. It's a problem for our national security. And so these aren't just hypothetical concerns. We got to get this right to make more stuff in this country. And I think our region has that, not just that legacy, but we've got the infrastructure to do it. We have a workforce. Like, we can really succeed if we're going to juice American manufacturing around here. And I think that's a big opportunity for us. We got to get it right, to be frank. I do think, and I've heard from maybe some in this room about some of the instability around trade policy, where you've got tariff levels changing day to day, week to week, and how difficult that's been to plan. I had a meeting with the Ag Secretary here in the Commonwealth maybe a week or so ago, hearing from the farmer side of this too, of how much the export markets are really important to what our farmers put into the markets. And so again, I don't want to have farmers left out of this conversation, given not just here in Beaver County, but across Pennsylvania, how much an important part of our economy agriculture is. We know, though, again, that Western Pennsylvania, if we get industrial policy right, can be primed to succeed. I saw and applauded the news about Homer City and the data center opportunity there. I know we have a chance for something in Beaver County perhaps as well. We have some unique opportunities to grow here, and I think we got to take them. I was at the groundbreaking with state and local and county officials, many in this room, from Mitsubishi, opening their new, doing the groundbreaking for the new facility in Big Beaver. That's a big win for our region's economy. Lots of construction jobs to build it. I think more than 200 permanent jobs are planned there. It's a great opportunity, and that's about not just the jobs that will build it and what the jobs of the people who will work there. That's about Western Pennsylvania helping the country meet growing out the grid, getting better electric or utility needs for all of us. And that happened, again, I come back to this team approach, right? The federal side of this, I helped support their application for, it's called the Qualifying Advanced Energy Project Credit. It's one of the tax credits from the Inflation Reduction Act. That was a big part of making the economics work for those guys. They had help, I know, at the state level, commissioners of the county as well. You got to have everybody rowed in the same direction, I think, for our economy to really flourish around here. And that's $86 million investment they're putting in there. And that's just one, I think and hope, of many wins we can bring to the county and to the region. It's also about onshoring our supply chains. And so much of what those guys will make and others, right? We are trying to have smarter supply chains, whether it's with our friends or here at home. We are a part of this in Western Pennsylvania. We should be proud of that. That's a big part of our economy growing in a good way for all of us. And again, I think we can lead the way here if we do this right. Federal funding is a big part of what you should expect me and our senators to work on. Similarly, for our colleagues in Harrisburg, they've got to do, and we've got to do what we can from each of our levels of government. I've been worried about efforts, though, to freeze some of the federal funding, and I talked about infrastructure projects in particular. But between the infrastructure law, the CHIPS and Science Act, both of which are bipartisan, the Inflation Reduction Act, there are lots of cases in the courts now fighting over whether the administration's executive orders to freeze parts of that funding can stick, if the courts will block that. Again, I think that's a real vulnerability for us. We have substantial infrastructure needs around here that if the courts allow some of these freezes to happen, those are good, solid jobs to build that infrastructure, but it's also infrastructure that helps us move the economy forward. I think about the Montgomery Locks and Dam in particular as a really important project for our region's economy. I hired on my staff a new grants coordinator. She's not here today. Her name is Emma, but no one should be shy about reaching out to the team in general, but also her in particular. Her job all day, every day is to make sure we are finding grant opportunities and offering letters of support. Even if you're applying for something in Harrisburg, the state level, we'll try to offer letters of support that helps make the state reps or state senators' case a little easier when they're going for that money in Harrisburg as well. So don't be shy about that. Another avenue I have used to be called the earmarks. They're now community project funding, CPF, we call them in the House. You get 15 of these per year. This year, the federal government was funded under a continuing resolution. None of these got funded. They zeroed them out, which is too bad, but it doesn't mean those projects still can't get funded, because any project that I can direct funding to is one that has to otherwise be eligible for a federal grant. And so that's a competitive process. It's municipalities and nonprofits, but it's not the end of the show if, say, the community project funding bucket in particular isn't funded, because you can still get that funding through, say, the USDA grant you're pursuing. And again, my team will help for everyone secure those. In the last year where they were funded, we had a couple of those funded in Beaver County. $500,000 for road improvements in Rochester on Route 68 through PennDOT. These can be things like infrastructure, police, public safety, fire departments, you name it. Anything that our federal government has grant opportunities for our municipal water authorities, municipalities, you name it, we can help and try our best to get those things through. Montgomery Locks and Dam, talked about it a bunch. One of the top, if not the top priority for the Army Corps of Engineers, certainly in the Commonwealth, nearly $1 billion project. Would be catastrophic to the Ohio River's commerce if we were to see those things fail. Long overdue investment. And funding initially through the infrastructure law before I was in the Congress. Senator Casey, Congressman Lamb, I think Senator Toomey still was working on that. We still need more money. We still need a lot more money. And we have work to do to get it done. It's got to be bipartisan. It's got to be Senators Fetterman, McCormick, and me all working together to get it. I was hopeful we get some of this in the community project funding this go around, given the spending deal that didn't happen, where we have to go back to the drawing board for this coming year. But again, the projections of what moves through there, $150 million annually to our economy of what moves through on the Ohio River there. We've got to get that funding done. This is one of those things that is, I think, has to be a top priority for the region for us to get funded in Washington, and any help, not just with me, but if you've got friends down there, we gotta get this done for the region. It's a big priority. I also want to talk a little bit about our higher ed, colleges and universities. As you can imagine, I've been concerned and was concerned to hear that Penn State is thinking about some campus closures. I feel good that won't be us and Penn State Beaver, but they've certainly heard from me, and I was excited and pleased to learn the new veterinary program and the funding there, I think, puts us in a good position. But I fired off a letter to Penn State's president. You got to have places that are about opportunity, and that's one of those here in Beaver County. I've got the stats. About 40% of the students of the school were the first in their families to attend higher ed like that. That's a big deal. That's a big deal for opportunity, for learning new skills, for being ready to enter the job workforce right here in Beaver County. And a lot of Beaver County residents head up there. And so to me, it's not, should we keep it open? It's how do you justify closing something that's that important for this region and for opportunity around here? I'll give one more update, or another update from Washington, then I'll save lots of time for questions. Launched a new caucus with some colleagues. I don't know if I love the name, Monopoly Busters, but it's about, it's okay. I didn't pick it. It's about, I come back to this point I make a lot about the American dream and opportunity. And we're worried about the way big, powerful monopolies are squeezing out small businesses, driving up costs for us, making it tougher to compete. I think a fundamental part of American capitalism is competition. It's not easy out there. I don't tell anybody that, nor should it be, right? Someone should be on your heels if you're not doing it right. I was honored to be joined by a father-son ownership team of a pharmacy in Allegheny County. Came down and talked about pharmacy benefit managers and the way they have so much power in the markets and are making it tough for independent pharmacists to operate. Right? This is not like an obvious right-left thing. These are small business owners who want to compete, who serve patients, who want to deliver medicine to folks. So it's a priority of mine as I think about opportunity, the American dream, that we got to take on some monopolies to make things a little more competitive in our market, a little more competitive in our economies. It's something I'll be working on, and I have been, and I'll keep it up. I will wrap it up. Again, I love that I get to do this job. I love that this district of ours is one that has given this country a lot. We will still give this country a lot. Now we're all in this to make this a great place to live and work and retire with dignity. That's, to me, fundamental to what the American dream is all about. So thank you for the chance to talk with everybody. I'm going to save lots of time for questions. Caroline, where are you? You'll have microphones, or someone will? Okay. I share your concerns around federal funding as well. I'll start with some values and background. I'm all about our government being smarter about spending public money, being more efficient spending money. I serve on the Armed Services Committee. There's a lot of waste in the Pentagon in particular. That's the biggest part of our discretionary budget, non-Social Security, Medicare, et cetera. But what I've seen out of DOGE and some of the groups who are pushing the cuts in the administration is pretty reckless stuff. The firings in particular that went for all probationary employees, regardless of whether they were offering something really important in their job, from delivering veterans care to processing Medicare claims, you name it. Head Start has been, I think, if not specifically targeted, certainly is feeling targeted. And I think that's a mistake. There are lots of things our government funds that are really important to our region, and the federal government in particular is the indispensable party. And so I look at a budget framework and a tax bill being debated that called for $880 billion of cuts from one part. I gotta drink some water, give me 1 second. I talk too much in this job sometimes. Calling for $880 billion of cuts from a pool of accounts. And if they cut everything in those accounts that wasn't Medicaid, you would still have to cut hundreds upon hundreds of billions of dollars from Medicaid. I just give you that as one example. It's why I have problems with that budget framework, among other reasons, all while crafting a tax bill that would, I think the price tag was $7 trillion, would add over the next 10 years north of $5 trillion to the debt. That's debt that we all will have to live with. I don't think that's fiscally responsible. I don't think it's fiscally responsible to do that on the backs of cutting programs like Head Start, cutting health care from Medicaid. And so I have real concerns with where I think this budget and tax proposal is going, and that's just one piece of it. There's no way that's the only question.
I think we're all in shock.
Commissioner says he's in shock, if you guys couldn't hear him.
Could you talk about industrial policy, manufacturing? Like, what are some of the specifics you see being able to be bipartisan to get through?
So CHIPS and Science Act was an example of this, right? It was a national security problem that Communist China had dominated so much of semiconductor chip manufacturing, period. And so that bill was about getting private investment in alongside some public incentives to do it. And some balk at that idea. We're not competing globally in a fair market, right? Communist China, among other countries, props up their industries. And these aren't just, we're not just competing for competition's sake. We have to have a defense industrial base in particular. And so that's a prime example of industrial policy that had bipartisan buy-in. I think the prior administration should have been better at getting those dollars into the ground, getting those dollars out to the communities. I think about examples now that we could succeed on shipbuilding in particular. Right, our shipbuilding industry has been wrecked. We don't compete fairly globally because of the way, again, China operates in the global market. And so that's a place where we need public investment, and we need some incentives for companies here to be able to compete, to get those assembly lines moving again. I think about steel. Right? We have to have steel as part of our industry in this country. And again, we face unfair competition globally. And yes, trade enforcement's part of that, but we need some incentives to grow some things here for companies to compete when they're not facing fair competition abroad. There's not just one thing, but I think the case is strongest where you have a national security component, where we're thinking about threats from economic adversaries who are destabilizing parts of the world, where we need to have an industrial base here at home.
Can I just follow
Yeah.
up on the steel?
Yeah.
It's one of the few things. First of all, thanks for being here, as always. Really appreciate it. But I think one of the few things we disagree with slightly is the deposit. U.S. Steel, as you know, all the county commissioners in the region have written letters of support for Nippon Steel investing in U.S. Steel.
Yep.
Any insight on where that is, and has your opinion changed on that?
So the latest is really what's been in the news, which is the president extended some time for CFIUS. This is the committee in Washington that advises the president can make a decision on whether he would accept this kind of deal. That he gave some additional time. There were some rumors floating around of the specifics of that deal. I don't yet know what that will look like. And what I would say, we've talked a lot about this, and what I would say is, number one, my goals remain, I want the best possible deal for our region. That's the headquarters, that's the steelworkers' jobs, and American steel making. If I had accepted the deal that was first proposed, and the folks in my position who didn't accept the deal that was first proposed, we've seen better proposals come along since then. I'm at a negotiating table, right? I want the best possible deal we can get. If I think that's where we are, then it will earn my support. I'm not there yet. But I think we have the ability to have real investment here, and we got to get this right. We shall see. Yeah.
You talked a lot about getting business back here.
Mm-hmm.
How do we build up our waning workforce? I think that's something that we see. I work for the YMCA at Camp Connie Spencer, and I know we have a tough time finding people to work for us. I can only imagine in the skilled industry being tougher.
It's a chicken and the egg thing a little bit, right? Because the jobs To get the workers, you need the jobs. I get it. Look, I think about, and I talked a lot about, I want us to have more manufacturing. I want to see policies that incentivize that. We also got to protect things like when a Penn State Beaver is potentially on the chopping block. Like, we got to have the pipelines for people to learn skills to be able to work. Our union apprenticeship programs are great. Those are important parts of this region having a great, strong workforce. Thanks, Tracy. It's not just one thing, but I do think, right, the economic development and the growth and the investment from industry, it's a little bit, it's both things. And in the federal side of this, there's only so much that the federal government can play, but I do think that industrial policy is part of it. Having, as best we can, federal programs that support workforce development and job skills and training, helping community colleges and those who are invested in job training. That's the piece from the federal government. And as I see Department of Education cuts that are proposed, that hurts that goal for us. So to me, like, connecting to some of the things I don't like that I'm seeing in Washington to that problem, that's a place where we got to see something different out of Washington.
Building on the workforce development issue, our Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act currently up for reauthorization at the federal level. So I don't know if you had any feedback on that.
I don't know exactly where it landed. Can I ask a follow-up? Do you mind? Do you know where funding landed in the FY25 continuing resolution we just did? I don't know offhand.
No,
Okay.
It's up for reauthorization, but I believe it was cut out of the previous
Okay. Let us find out, and I'll have Caroline or Faith or my team will follow up.
Congressman Calvin Sharp from Geneva College. We're really thankful that you're here with us today. And on the education theme, just wondering what you're hearing and what you're seeing in the budget bill regarding Pell. We're working really hard at affordability, and we need the team that you've been talking about between Pell grants and state grant. That's very generous and that's a thing. I just wondered what you're hearing and seeing about Pell and those kinds of things.
Yeah, I would be dishonest if I said don't worry at all. I think that's a mistake. No, I know, but again, look. I think to put even Pell grants at risk, right? That's a key mode of opportunity for somebody who otherwise couldn't afford to go to school. And this budget framework is really going to be the answer to a lot of, to that question, to the Head Start question. And, this is proceeding on a purely partisan basis. Because of the Senate, typically you've got to have 60 votes for things to pass, which means you've got to have Democrats and Republicans work together. My Republican counterparts are proceeding under what's called budget reconciliation. And so they're doing this through a budget framework so they can pass it on a simple majority out of the Senate. And what that means is Democrats are really not being pulled in as part of the negotiations here. If the budget reconciliation process fails because there aren't enough Republican votes on their own, or for some other reason, then I think you'll have a much more bipartisan approach. As of now, it is not a bipartisan approach. And so that leaves A, some uncertainty of where it'll go, and B, frankly, it's a purely Republican bill at this point. If it changes, then it becomes, I think, a better product in the sense you'll have input from both parties.
Quinna Price from Family Matters Food Pantry. Where do you see any funding for the food pantry for the people that are starving,
I know.
especially in Beaver County?
I think another risk that I think makes very little sense, cuts that I don't support. I should be clear, I voted against the funding bill for the rest of this year, which I don't take lightly, but cut things like the emergency food program in that spending bill. Had some cuts in National Institutes of Health funding for this region. I don't think that makes sense to do. And I won't defend it because it's not my priority and not something I support. I agree.
level cares about that.
Well, I would say,
I'm very passionate about this.
no, listen, I would say plenty care. I would say plenty care. And I think the fact that you saw so many make the point around the debate of you're going to hurt real people in real ways, and cuts to, say, the emergency food program in particular, I mean, it's indefensible to me. I care. I think plenty cared. And you saw a very, very close party line vote to even pass it for the rest of this year. So the other part of this, as you know, farmers don't want to see these programs cut, whether it's SNAP or the emergency food program. These are important programs for our farmers. These are important programs about or for fighting hunger. And so I hear you.
Good morning. I'm Marie Tintana with the Cornerstone of Beaver County. It's nice to see you again. My question is sort of following up. Food is obviously a basic need, as is housing. And so I'm wondering about if you could give us any feedback, first of all, on housing and urban development and what's happening with those cuts. In addition, protections for individuals who may find themselves discriminated against in a housing situation, where those protections are being eliminated, and that is obviously concerning as well.
Well, I'll start with the second part, and should be obvious. The Congress hasn't changed any of the laws around housing discrimination. We've changed none of those laws. The only thing that's changed is different enforcement priorities from the Justice Department, for instance, or within HUD. The laws are the same. They ought to be enforced. I think it's a pretty basic bipartisan idea that you shouldn't be discriminated against in housing, and we have laws that protect against it. And so tell me, by the way, if you hear those problems, because one of the things I get to do is fire off letters to the Attorney General, and who knows if she listens, or to the U.S. Attorney here. But we should expect our officials across administrations to enforce the law. And I feel like I keep having to give the same answer, which is unsatisfactory for me and for, I suspect, many of you, of so many of these programs are on the chopping block because of what's being proposed down there. And I don't want to give the same answer over and over again, but it is a reality of what's being proposed to be cut. And beyond cut, right, the Congress, let's go back to civics. The Congress decides what is spent, right? The House and the Senate pass the spending bills or bills. The President signs them. Administrations go spend the money in accordance with what we pass. I think so much of the fighting has been efforts to not spend money that Congress appropriated, which is not a power that exists for the president, whoever the president is. That basic separation of powers is being tested in the courts. It's being tested in the Congress. I have colleagues who are fine with that. I'm not, because there will be a different president and a different majority in the Congress, and we'll have. You'll have Democrats control the Congress and a Republican president, or Democratic president, Republican Congress, or maybe things change. Institutionally, the American people need our system to be strong. And I don't think that should be uniquely a Democratic or Republican problem.
Thank you, Congressman, for coming. Pastor Baldy Wilson, Light of Salvation Church, in the capacity of working with the Housing Authority Board of Directors. Our concern is, with Ms. Walters, is the Housing Authority when it comes to Section 8 and housing, the vouchers of that, and working alongside with Ms. Winnie here at the food bank during the pandemic. No food, potential, no funding for Section 8, and then working with Mrs. Osbich when it comes to Head Start, no learning for the children. Where are we going with it? That is a concern.
Well, again, I shouldn't tell you there's no risk here. I mean, there is. I'll do everything I can to make sure that that things like food insecurity are not afterthoughts in our budget process. One of the things that my team and I have gotten a good response on is I have a portal on the website of shared stories with me and my team about any of these cuts and the impact on what you are doing, because that helps me go tell the story in the press, to the public, people to understand the direct impact between, say, a federal program that might seem like something on paper and something that's happening in your community. It helps arm me to make the case to defend things that are worthwhile to us in the community. So I don't want to put the onus back on here on anyone else, but it does help me do the job when I know what's going on and how a program, good or bad, or how a change, good or bad, is affecting us here. And I'll have my team come and talk to you a little bit more about what's going on.
Thank you, Congressman.
Okay.
So I get the privilege of closing here on a question that's very important to a lot of the businesses here in Beaver County and Pennsylvania writ large, is infrastructure permitting. You talk about bipartisan opportunities between the Montgomery locks and dams, but we're also thinking about new data centers, our electric grid in PJM and beyond. A lot of people have been waiting for the massive permitting overhaul that is probably going to be a tricky thing to get done in any scenario. And there are, I think this is a classic example of local, state, and federal officials need to come together and allow America to build. Maybe you could close on that, and then we will do some photos.
You bet. So it is one of those things that's both the state and Washington, and I know the General Assembly and the governor hopefully are moving forward in something useful. Washington has to act here. I mean, there were a couple proposals in the last Congress around permitting reform that got close and didn't happen, and it's making it too difficult to build out any new grid capacity. There was a proposal in the Senate that Senator Manchin and I believe Barrasso had put together that seemed like it had a chance to pass, and it ultimately didn't, and I think it's probably the framework that folks will build from this Congress to pass something. My colleagues in the Natural Resources Committee, I know, are negotiating in a bipartisan way there, because you'll have to have Republican and Senate buy-in, or Republican and Democratic buy-in in the Senate. But I can tell you that this is a priority. I think for a bunch of reasons, you've got people across this political spectrum who know we need to get this done, right? You look at the Inflation Reduction Act, and folks who are very focused on, say, achieving climate goals understand that the potential benefits of that bill aren't being met because of permitting issues. Folks who want to build out agnostic, right, whatever the power source is, understand that you can't build out well enough because permitting reform needs to happen, or hasn't happened yet. And so I think it's one of those things that can actually happen in this Congress, and there is momentum building from that Senate proposal from the last Congress. Okay.
Any closing comments?
I'll just say I love to get to do this. It's great to be with all of you. This is an honor to get to do this job and represent all of us, and I really appreciate the chance to be with you guys. So thank you so much.
Just heard from Congressman Chris Deluzio. It's the Congressional Breakfast, sponsored by the Beaver County Chamber of Commerce. A full house here this morning to hear the congressman speak, to hear about some of the issues that business and nonprofits. That seemed to be something that was important to a lot of people, and that is the nonprofits or the public safety programs that are out there. And as the congressman said, he couldn't be confident, and neither should we, about whether some of that funding or staffing will be cut. So it's wait and see. We're in a holding pattern to find out what happens in Washington as it pertains to the state, because a lot of the money we get here in Pennsylvania and in Beaver County come from Washington and then filter through the state and pass through the county for a lot of these programs that take care of and are concerned about the less fortunate in Beaver County. So the questions are still out there. The answers are hard to come by, but as they do and as the questions come up, you can be sure we'll cover it on Beaver County Radio. I'm Mike Romai at Seven Oaks Country Club with the Congressional Breakfast with Congressman Chris